Assalamu alaikum and a very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are live from LUMS on the fourth and last day of our Knowledge Week. I am Isha Mahmood and today we are going to talk about Shaikh Ahmad School of Law at LUMS. This school offers a 5-year BA-LL.B honors degree that will provide you a world-class legal education with a primary focus on Pakistani law, where the degree is fully recognized by Pakistan Bar Council and the Higher Education Commission as a qualifying law degree. I'm now going to introduce our panelists to all of you. We have Ms. Heba Akbar and Ms. Marwa Khan. They're both faculty members at the School of Law. I'd now like to request Ms. Heba to please introduce herself to our audience.
My name is Heba Akbar. I'm a teaching fellow at the Shaikh Ahmad School of Law, and this is a position that I take great pride in because I'm an alumna of the Shaikh Ahmad School myself. After completing my LL.B from LUMS, I worked for a few years and then completed my LLM from Columbia University in New York on the Fulbright scholarship. Since then, I've been in academia, and it gives me great pride to be here at LUMS. I am also currently the secretary of the LUMS Law Alumni Association. So that's me.
Assalamu alaikum everybody. I'm an assistant professor at the Shaikh Ahmad School of Law, like she already mentioned. I'm Marwa Khan. So just like Heba as well, I too am an alumna of this particular institution, so I also take great pride in being here. It was a very coveted position when we were students, so now that we have the position, it's interesting. So I've been teaching here for about a period of 4 years now. Before coming here, essentially, so after I graduated from LUMS, I worked in the corporate sector for a little bit. Then I went for my, again, also like Heba, on the Fulbright scholarship to Harvard. I did my LLM, came back and joined academia, and I essentially specialize in constitutional law and human rights.
Thank you very much, both of you. Ms. Heba, I'd now like to request you to please share something about the law school at LUMS.
Well, the law school at LUMS is actually a pioneer in Pakistan because it's the first university that actually rolled out the integrated BA-LL.B degree. Subsequent to the Supreme Court's order about a year ago or 2 years ago, that's now the program that's been followed, that's mandated across Pakistan. But that program was actually fine-tuned here at LUMS. So what that it basically involves is that we have 2 years of so-called BA education, which is in those 2 years, students study some basic introductory law courses, but mostly they study social sciences and courses across the university. And this is the time when our students are able to build friendships and network across the university and get a really immersive interdisciplinary training. Subsequent to those 2 years, that's when the hardcore law education begins. And for about the first 2 years, it's mainly law courses, and finally in the last year, there's again an option to pick a lot of electives from across the university as long as they have a nexus with the law. So that's one of those things that's closest to my heart when it comes to the law program at LUMS, when it comes to SASOL, is this almost perfect integration of an interdisciplinary approach. And it's the ability to do a lot of comparative analysis of the law, and that's something I'm going to leave to Marwa to talk about since that's her core specialty.
Thank you, Ba. So it is a 5-year degree, and just to take you a little back, the law, which is now currently the law school, started off as a law and policy department with our first batch graduating in 2008. And in 2013, we essentially became a full-fledged law school. But as I think, being a former student myself, I mean, when we came in, when we secured admission, our parents, our family, our friends were all rather skeptical about the whole 5-year program because at that point in time, it wasn't just the external degree, but all the other Pakistani law colleges were also offering a 3-year law degree. And at this point, I can very safely say that I am very lucky that I did not fall for the 3-year degree at that point in time, because the extra year that I spent over here is something that is not comparable with the opportunity, the very high opportunity cost, not just in terms of academia, because of course, just like Heba mentioned, we cover a lot of diverse subjects. So particularly in the BA years, the first 2 years, we have a lot of variety in terms of which courses we can go to enroll in, and this can be courses from across LUMS, so in any other school as well. So I sort of had a field day with this particular option, making sure that I went to pretty much every school that I could go to. But also in terms of the diverse experiences that LUMS offers, not apart from academia, in terms of extracurricular activities, the numerous amount of student associations that exist on campus, the very diverse student body that exists on campus. You have people from all across Pakistan who come here to study. So this is a sort of sample set that you don't generally get, especially in your school education. And the sort of friendships that you make are essentially lifelong friendships. And I think it's not an experience that I could ever exchange for the world. And coming closer to the law school, so Heba mentioned that she's serving on the board of the Alumni Association. I too did that before. I was the vice president, and essentially we were the founding members of the association as well. And that little fraternity, even though it's not very large in numbers right now, is like a family at this point in time, because I think it's in terms of, because you might have heard that, you know, if you try to, or if you tell anybody that you want to go into the legal field, everybody says it's all about patronage and you must have connections before you actually go into the degree. I think even if you don't have those sorts of connections and networking prior to coming into the degree, the sort of networking that you get as part of being of SASOL, a student here and a graduate subsequently, is essentially amazing. I got my first job through the Alumni Association, which was sort of a rough association at that point in time, but yeah.
And I especially, I appreciate the fact now that we have somewhat like more than 10 batches who've graduated, more than 10? Lot more than 10, yeah?
11.
Okay, 11. Is the fact that, you know, we're so spread out across Pakistan. You have an alumni in definitely the 4 major cities, but in addition to that, a lot of smaller towns as well. So we're constantly bouncing ideas off each other, we're using resources from each other, we're using guidance from each other when we want to branch into newer cities. Maybe for us in academia, we want to research a different city, research a question that involves work in a different city apart from Lahore. So that's a big support that the Alumni Association gives us. And as more and more batches graduate, and as that association is only going to get enriched further. So that's something I'm definitely looking forward to in the coming years for the Alumni Association in particular.
Thank you very much. Tell us a bit more about the subjects that you two are teaching particularly at the law school.
Well, so I teach comparative constitutional law, criminal law, and 2 introductory level courses called Intro to Pakistan's Legal System and Introduction to Legal Reasoning. And the one that's closest to my heart has to be criminal law. And criminal law, actually, the reason I like it is because it's an exemplary SASOL course, because it allows us to use comparative legal education. And what that basically means is that even though we're a program based in Pakistan, focused on Pakistani law, we're constantly using case law from around the world, particularly the UK and the US. So that gives us, as an alumni of this program, as well as my students today, it gives us a very well-rounded approach where we are familiar with more than one legal systems, we're very well versed with the common law, and we're able to focus on developing legal reasoning skills and then apply them to Pakistan. So by the time we're done with the course, the students are familiar with offences under the under Pakistan's criminal system, as well as a comparative approach. So they're able to critique the system, they're able to identify loopholes in it. They have a very good introduction to the common law. In addition to that, I teach 2 introductory level courses, like I mentioned, Pakistan's legal system and Introduction to Legal Reasoning. I particularly like those courses because they give me a chance to integrate with younger students who just started at LUMS or are in their 2nd year of education at LUMS. So that gives me an opportunity to guide them, tell them show them the ropes at LUMS, ease them into the LUMS education process, etc., etc. So I'll let you talk about the other ones.
So essentially we also share some courses that we teach. So I too teach the 2 pre-law courses, which are Introduction to Pakistan Legal System, where we essentially give an overview of the constitutional framework, what is civil law, criminal law, constitutional law, followed by Introduction to Legal Reasoning, in terms of where we teach the students how to read judgments. I mean, reading them is an art or a technique in itself. Then I also teach a comparative constitutional law, which essentially takes constitutional themes to at an international level between common law countries and civil law countries, and also various jurisdictions within these particular 2 domains. And in addition to that, essentially another course that I'm really excited about this year is that another professor, Ms. Bean, and I essentially are starting a gender advocacy clinic. So legal aid clinics essentially are a phenomena actually well established in a lot of top tier law schools around the world, particularly in the United States, and we're trying to sort of bring that model of course within our own context here at LUMS. So we didn't really have clinics and we were students, so I'm a little jealous of our students at this point. But so the legal aid clinics essentially, so we already have one up and running which is on criminal law. So in that particular clinic our students essentially partake in accompanying actually practicing lawyers. They essentially are assigned a real life case, criminal law case of course, and they accompany the lawyers to court, they assist them in their research, so and essentially a part of the whole system itself. So in the gender advocacy clinic, what we're essentially aspiring to right now is that our students will be working with the FIA and for dealing with cases which are under coming to the state under the new cyber harassment law, which is the Prevention of Electronic Crimes Act. And our case students will also be assisting the newly formed gender-based violence courts, also called the GBV courts, in terms of the prosecution of various types of sexual offences.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Thank you very much for the thorough introduction of yourself and the school. So we're now going to start taking live questions, and the first question is from Aisha, and she'd like to know, what is the eligibility criteria for BA-LL.B at LUMS? I'm just going to take that. So the minimum eligibility criteria for anybody who wants to apply for the law program at LUMS is that for the students who are from the intermediate stream, they need to have a minimum of 70% marks in their matric, and then again 70% marks in their FSC, ICS ICOM, and 65% marks in their FA. For the students who are from the O-levels or A-level stream, they need to have an average grade of B in at least 8 subjects in their O-levels, and students who are in their A-levels, they need to have a minimum of, they need to have an average of BBC in their A-levels. And coming to the testing requirements, you need to take SAT with the essay component, or you can attempt the ACT with the essay component. So from this year onwards, we've also started accepting ACT. So in order to get into LUMS, no matter which program or which school you're getting into, you need to take SAT with the essay component or ACT with the essay component. And if you plan to get into the law school, then you need to take an additional test, which is a requirement by the Supreme Court of Pakistan. That's the law admission test. So that's again a mandatory requirement to get into the law school at LUMS, or in fact anywhere else. So you're going to find all the information about the law admission test at the HEC website. So please do visit that website for all the details on the law admission test. Okay, so the next question is from Hena, and she'd like to know, what is the duration of the degree? Ms. Heba, if you could take that.
So the degree is a 5-year program, which is now the minimum across Pakistan. So any Pakistani law school or law college that you go to will be offering the 5-year LLB degree. So as we discussed earlier, what that basically entails is 2 years of integrated sort of BA component, where you're taking courses across LUMS in addition to a few pre-law courses. That's Introduction to Pakistan's Legal System and Introduction to Legal Reasoning. So those are the years that you build an interdisciplinary approach and skills that you will learn from perhaps the humanities and social sciences. Subsequent to those first 2 years, there's 3 years of pure legal education, and that's where most of your classes end up being at the law school. Even in those 3 years, I want to stress that a lot of courses are offered in conjunction with other schools at LUMS, so there's a huge focus on interdisciplinary approach. So that's a 5-year degree, and any person who seeks admission to the LUMS law program has to complete the whole 5-year program. We do not accept lateral entries into the program, which is you cannot skip perhaps the BA years and just come for the 3 LLB years. It has to be the entire 5-year program.
Yes, so it's a 5-year program at LUMS. Okay, so the next question is from Rohail, and he'd like to know what career opportunities will open for me after completing my BA-LL.B from LUMS.
Okay,
please.
So I think the career opportunity is quite diverse, right? So one is the straightforward answer that you could go into litigation, be it on the civil, criminal, constitutional side, whatever you want. You could also essentially work as an in-house counsel at a corporate firm, let's say, or other corporate company. at a bank, something of that sort. But I think the edge that the LUMS degree provides you, and just like Heba mentioned, that it's an interdisciplinary degree, right? So because of that, one essentially has the option to diversify their career goals as well. So there have been a few alumni who actually gone on to pursue masters and even PhDs in other fields as well, other social sciences. So that's essentially one option on the other side. There are a lot of think tanks as well, which essentially seek out people with sort of interdisciplinary background, educational background. So that's essentially another avenue that is usually open to our graduates as well. And I think at this point, all our alumni essentially are rather well situated in terms of job placements. They've never really had to face an issue.
I'd like to add to that. There's a growing number of alumni who are successful CSS applicants or are currently taking the CSS examination. So they get a lot of support from the LUMS community, because by the time they graduate, there's a number of students from other schools as well who aspire to take the CSS. A number of them have succeeded. The Career Services Office hosts, I believe, a monthly CSS seminar series where they invite successful people, successful bureaucrats for talks at LUMS. So the law program also really quite fully helps law students take the CSS exam. So there's a growing number of students who are going on the CSS side, and I believe quite recently, in fact in the last qualifying exam, the highest scoring applicant, Shanza Faik, is a graduate of the LUMS Law School, and she's opted for the foreign services. 2 years ago, Mohammed Danish was among the top 10. I don't exactly remember his name, and I believe he either opted for the DMG or the foreign services group. In addition to that, Marwa was talking about think tanks. So a number of alumni are also well placed in the development sector and on the research side and with think tanks, etc. And I believe the LUMS education is a really good training for that, because a big component of the LUMS education is legal reasoning skills and good writing skills. And those are the sort of skills that obviously are essential for a lawyer, but also make you very well sought after if you're looking at the development sector and just research-based jobs.
Right. Okay, so the next question is from Saman. Does first 2 years of law degree comprise of regular graduation, and do law courses start in the third year?
So we essentially have 3 law courses that you teach that are taught to students in the first 2 years. So the 2 we already mentioned, Introduction to Pakistan Legal System, Introduction to Legal Reasoning. Students generally tend to take this at the first year of, so 1 semester each, fall and spring. And then in the next year, which is also called the sophomore year, that's when students essentially take another course called Concept of Law. So these are the 3 pre-law courses that we have right now, which of course count towards the law requirement as well, which are mandatory. In addition to these, we essentially have some university course that every LUMS student has to take anyway, which include Pakistan Studies, Islamic Studies, Writing and Communication. And then there's also 3 outgroup courses that you have to take, which essentially means that you have to take 3 courses from another school, which is essentially not the law school, in order to make sure that every student sort of gets a flavor of another discipline. And all the remaining credits generally tend to be free electives, so you can take them across schools. And even there's also an option on right now that you can choose a minor. So your major essentially will be law, but your minor could be, let's say, in like anything, so like sociology, psychology, something of the sort. Yeah.
So we have a wide range of minor that you can opt from.
And I just want to point out that there's no clear sort of disjunction between the initial 2 years and the last 3 years. It's not like you'll finish the 2 years and you'll have a convocation and you'll be awarded a separate degree. It is all part of the same degree.
Yeah. Okay, so the next question is from Zahra, and she'd like to know, are there any specific subjects that LUMS require their law students to have done in O and A level? So I'll take this. No, there are no specific subjects that you're required to take for the law degree at LUMS. The next question is from Zubair. When can I give the law entry test if I'm planning to apply for the intake of 2020? So Zubair, you need to take the next available attempt for the law admission test. You can check the HEC website, that's hec.gov.pk. Please go to the website and see whenever they're offering the next attempt, you need to take that to apply for the admissions in 2020. All right, so the next question is from Ramsha. Do foreign countries accept and recognize my degree? So since you've both done your higher studies from international universities, so you could elaborate that.
Absolutely. There's never been a sort of hurdle in that, because foreign recognition is essentially contingent on whether this law degree is recognized by the regulatory bodies in Pakistan. That would be the Pakistan Bar Council and the Higher Education Commission of Pakistan. As the degree is recognized by both of them, it's foreign universities accept this without problem.
Yeah. So, but just to add, if you want to practice, let's say in another jurisdiction, so uske andar there might be a few caveats there, right? So, for instance, if you want to practice in the United States and you want to take the New York bar for that matter, then you will need an LLM, which is a master's degree in law from an American university, and there's a few, like 2 or 3 courses that you have to take. So once you do that, then you are eligible to sit for the New York bar. Similarly, you might need to take a conversion course in the UK and also in Canada.
No, not in Canada.
Okay, not in Canada, but these 2 jurisdictions, there's just like an extra requirement for practice only. But let's say if you want to go into academia or some other field, your LUMS law degree should be fine for that.
So you can think of this as the requirements for the medical field, because all medical training is sort of regulated by each country individually. So the moment you move to another jurisdiction, you have to take some sort of licensing or some sort of exam in order to get the license to practice law in that country. So each country will be slightly different in that respect, but they will accept this as an undergraduate degree.
Okay, so the next question is from Shanza, and she'd like to know what are the different teaching methods employed at LUMS for the law degree?
Long question.
So essentially we have something called the Socratic method. So the Socratic method allows for essentially it simply means that we cold call on students. Students are expected to come prepared to classes. So there's a reading package that you will have for every course that you take in LUMS, and they're going to be assigned readings. I mean, we're not talking about engineering courses here, because they work in a different way, but for pretty much every other school, that's essentially going to be the way. And once you come to class is essentially mostly discussion based. So you will have a couple of lectures here or seminars here or there, which might be more lecture based as well, where the instructor comes and discusses all the material with you. But primarily within the law school, they're mostly discussion based.
Yeah. And another thing that we really use at the law school is what you can roughly call the case study method, where we read judgments from whatever jurisdiction is under discussion, and we discuss them heavily in class. So a big part of this is, as any decent lawyer should know, reading and understanding judgments and the surrounding situations around them.
All right, so the next question is from Sakina Zulfikar Ali. How do you place students for internships, especially during LL.B. phase?
So at least for the first 3 years of my job here, I had been dealing with that justice as well. So we essentially have a career fair every year before your summer break begins, sorry. And so it's generally around April or March or April, and the idea is that we invite reputable law firms from across the country to come give an overview of the nature of work that they do, and we allow our students to apply for internships with them there and then. We also have a large database of various law firms that operate across the country in various cities, and the students essentially can get reference letters from us, their instructors, to apply to any of these places for an internship position, and generally it's not that difficult also.
Okay. The next question is from Samya. Why law from LUMS when many universities are offering London University degrees?
Oh, I'd like to take this question. Sure. So, for one thing, people tend to get thrown off by the fact that this is a 5-year degree and the University of London external degree offers a 3-year program. The important thing to keep in mind there is that at the University of London, you're studying English law. And while, yes, our system is derived from the English legal system, we are part of the common law system, it does not give you a very good immersion in Pakistani law, Pakistani procedure specifically, very different from UK procedure, advocacy before courts in Pakistan, etc., etc. What a lot of University of London graduates or students actually therefore do is take up internships during their education in order to make up for that loss, but that's not exactly a good immersion and doesn't exactly make up for the limitations of the University of London program. Number two, the University of London program is final exam based, so you take your studying in your classes if you decide to for the entire year, and at the end of the year you sit for your final exam. The system at LUMS is semester based. So what that basically means is that there's no one single day and your performance on that day that will make up your grade, but you're being assessed throughout the course. We're giving you assignments, quizzes, midterms, finals. There's a class participation component as well. So that spreads out the workload, and that allows us the opportunity to experiment and integrate a lot of different pedagogical tools and learning approaches. So we're catering to very different sorts of strengths and weaknesses in doing that. In addition to that, once you graduate, and when I started working this, I noticed that I was able to hit the ground running because I knew Pakistani law, I knew Pakistani procedure, I knew everything like the back of my hand. So I did not have to spend a lot of time and a lot of anxiety, frankly, trying to figure out what Pakistani law is or what it's like in this particular area, even if it's a very narrow area like perhaps equity or trusts. That's not an advantage that the University of London graduate has, quite frankly, having worked with a lot of University of London graduates myself. So they actually, the sort of 2 years you save of the legal education by opting for the University of London program, you tend to use those 2 years then to try to learn what Pakistani law is like. And even then, having the sort of bird's eye view that the LUMS education as a Pakistan focused degree gives you, you may not be able to get that. And then lastly, and this may not be top priority for a lot of people, but it is closest to my heart. As a LUMS student, what I remember most about my education at LUMS is the student life here. We have an immensely diverse student life here. There's clubs and societies of every hue and color. There's so many events on campus that it actually becomes hard to keep up with all of them. So that's because the University of London colleges tend to be just focused on giving you the skills and the training you need to take that exam at the end of the year. They do not have that sort of rich student life. At best, they'd have a moot court society or a model MUN society, but they will not have like a LUMS adventure society and the sports club and the dramatics club and the culture society, etc., etc. Those are the skills that's how you're making most of your friends, that's how you enjoy LUMS, but those are also teaching you a lot of skills outside of the classroom that a sort of University of London college will be unable to teach you.
If I could just club the previous question with this one, I think one of the reasons that our students secure internship positions and job placements very easily is also because of the nature of the degree itself. Now, the fact that you are studying Pakistani law 1, so even when you're a current student, you are well versed in carrying out research in terms of how to take out cases which are local as well as international, because again, we sort of have an comparative sort of study within the law school, right? So it's not just that your study or education is myopic in that sense, it's rather expansive. So even as a current student, you are a very valuable asset to any law firm that you might want to intern in. And I think also because of the interdisciplinary background, the sheer variety of places that you can secure an internship or a job placement also essentially is much greater than, I would say, a person who's doing the external 3-year degree.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next question is from Heather, and he'd like to know, how is the life of a student here at law school? How rigorous is the program? I'd actually like you to add a bit of the student perspective here. How was your life as a student here, and how did you manage, like you just mentioned, how did you sort of balance the academics and extracurriculars and everything here?
Okay. Well, it's a very rich experience, like I just mentioned. It's hard to pick which society to be a part of and which event to attend and which talk to forego. So it's a very enriching experience that way. I think one of the notable things about LUMS is that something like 40 or 60% of the student body lives on campus in the hostels.
Yes.
So this is a 24-hour campus. There's always something to do. There's always friends to hang out with. So that, there's a very healthy balance between academics and extracurricular and co-curricular activities. In addition to that, obviously, the society that's closest to us right now, obviously, is the Law and Politics Society, that's constantly hosting talks and seminars and conferences on cutting edge areas or developing areas of interest for law students. So Just this last semester, we had talks on, for example, the forced conversion issue. What's it like from a legal perspective? We had a talk on lots of others that I can't recall right now. There's also an annual moot court that the Law and Politics Society hosts, which invites law colleges and programs from across Pakistan to participate in what would be like a mock trial and the arguments around that. So that's a great way to build skills as well. As a student, for me, it wasn't too hard juggling extracurricular activities with my academic requirements. Because they tend to sort themselves out themselves. It's pretty easy to juggle. There's a very clear, you have prior information of what sort of performance you are expected to do in your classes, so you're reading ahead of time and are therefore able to plan your extracurricular activities accordingly. And at the end of the year, there's always the LUMS Adventure Society trip up north that you have to look forward to. So Marva, anything you'd like to add?
I mean, the law degree is a little rigorous, we can't just deny that. But I think, just like Heba mentioned, it's all about learning how to deal with it. So once you come in, and I think it's not just true for law, but essentially across schools as well. Once students come in during the first year, there's so much happening in terms of extracurricular activities, the courses, and also that it's not like school, right? It's not like you're going to have an exam after a year or 2 years, so you can sort of relax and let go entirely until then. So it takes a little while to, I think, to get adjusted to this particular atmosphere. But once you do, then from then onwards, essentially it's easy going. So it's essentially just there's a bit of a learning curve on that end. In terms of the rigor of the law school itself, I think if you're planning on applying to the law school, one of the advice I would just give you, it doesn't matter what particular discipline you're coming from, are you pre-med, pre-engineering or whatever, as long as you spend a little time reading things, so just build up your reading speed a little bit before you enter LUMS, and then I think LUMS will be fairly easy for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Since you mentioned the moot court, tell us a bit more about the facilities that are available at law school, particularly about the moot court and the recently inaugurated Chinese Center for Legal Studies.
So LUMS is very proud to have an on-campus moot court room, the Asfa Irfan moot court room, that's modeled on the Chief Justice's room at the Lahore High Court. So it's a bit of a reason of pride for all of us. We use it for all sorts of events, extracurricular talks, etc., and obviously for the annual moot court that's hosted by the LUMS, the Law and Politics Society that I just talked about. Just this last semester, we inaugurated the Center for Chinese Legal Studies, which is, I believe, the first of its kind across Pakistan, in that it's very integrated. It's housed at the law school, but it's working on programs with, for example, the Executive Development Center at LUMS, with the Business School at LUMS, etc., etc. And under the Chinese Legal Studies Center, some of the inaugural activities we've had so far is this semester we had a short course on an introduction to Chinese legal studies that was offered by 2 professors from Wuhan University in China. In the coming 2 semesters, we have 2 conferences planned with Wuhan University. We have a further course in the spring semester that's going to once again be about aspects of Chinese law. And there's further sort of exchanges and research trips planned as well. So what this Center for Chinese Legal Studies, there's a huge research component to it as well. But what this essentially means for students is that it's an integrative approach, and it's an inlet into China, a country that we actually don't know much about culturally, linguistically, legally especially. It's an inlet into that. So it's both the soft skills of culture, etc., as well as an introduction to Chinese law. That, of course, given the current economic and political situation in Pakistan and recent developments, that's a particular need for that I believe LUMS students will have an extra edge in by the time they graduate.
Yeah, so I think just between the ongoing semester and the next semester, we've had 4 faculty members come in. So we had 2 from University of Wuhan, and then we essentially have Professor Ben Boer, then we have Professor Matthew Very. So there's a diverse sort of faculty that's essentially coming into LUMS. So it's sort of like an exchange program for students on campus, because you get to experience that, like faculty members from various universities, from various jurisdictions coming in here just to teach you, and essentially also gives a nice insight into legal system where there's not a lot of accessible research available on right now. So I think that way essentially the center provides sort of a niche to any students who essentially are willing to take the course.
So yes, through this center, our students will actually get to study about the Chinese legal law.
Yeah,
as well.
so the course essentially that we just taught was in the Chinese legal system, and the next course essentially is on Chinese business law.
Great, okay. All right, so the next question is from Sahir, and he'd like to know what types of law can I study in the LUMS BA-LL.B program?
Okay. Do you want to take this? Okay. So there's essentially no specialization at the BA-LL.B level. What you would graduate with is a BA-LL.B degree. And in that degree, you will be studying a whole variety of legal disciplines, from criminal law, tort, commercial law, jurisprudence, which is the sort of philosophy of law side. We have electives in taxation, commercial arbitration, legal practice and advocacy, a number of courses actually focusing on legal writing, legal practice and advocacy, public international law, a whole host of courses. So you'll be actually spoiled for choice, I think.
Okay. So the next question is from Maida. Are there any exchange opportunities for students to apply for during the degree?
So we do have exchange programs, but for law students, you can only go for an exchange program either within the first 2 years at LUMS or a summer exchange program, because once you actually enter the third year, so the next 3 years essentially, which are the LLB stream, the courses are rather structured. So every semester you will have at least a bunch of core courses that you will have to take. So in case you missed one semester, the courses that you will miss will be prereqs for the next semester. So it will be difficult for you to catch up and might essentially pose a hindrance in your graduation. So you might graduate a little late because of it. So if you want to go, it's either the first 2 years or any subsequent summer break, basically.
Yeah. The next question is from Kabir. Are there any research-based courses in this degree?
Plenty, I think.
Yeah.
I think one of the landmark commonalities of all LUMS courses, if you're within the law school or even in the Gumani school, there's generally a research component associated with most of the courses that you'll take. Not so much in the first year, so 100 level courses don't really have a high end, although some of them do, but so from your second year or sophomore year onwards, there's going to be some form of research component pretty much in every other course. And then we also, within the law stream, there's something called the senior year project, which you can do at any point in the last 2 years of your degree. So the senior year project essentially ranges from 4 to 8 credits, and for that essentially you can take up a wide variety of research endeavors under the supervision of one or more of the law faculty members. And we have very research active faculty on that front, so who can assist you on that. There's also something called the independent study, which is a shorter research project over the course of one semester. It's usually 1 to 2 credits, so which also culminates with the research paper in the end. So in terms of research opportunities, I think research essentially is going to become very easy if you actually do end up coming into the law school, because we're really going to make sure that you end up taking all these things.
And I think our library needs mention here. It's a pretty stellar library. I don't know the number of titles in there, but I can assure you there's many of them. And it doesn't just have sort of law books and law journals that have reported judgments in them, but it's got a lot of interdisciplinary books as well, because it's also obviously catering to the economics faculty and the sociology faculty, etc., etc. So you would find a lot of titles that, for example, are on the cusp of more than one discipline. In addition, because we were lucky enough to be bequeathed this library from Advocate Khalid Ishaq Chaudhry on his death. He was a very successful lawyer in Karachi. What that benefit gives us is that we have a lot of historical books that it would be actually really hard for you to find in other libraries across the country. So we have those, and in addition to that, the library also has subscriptions for a host of legal research databases, be they from Pakistan, India, UK or US, as well as databases for other disciplines, and that opens up a lot of doors for you. So your ability, so one of the things, Marwa earlier mentioned is about your training at LUMS really prepares you for a lot of professions and a lot of countries. That's the part that really trains you for being able to sort of maybe take up a job in another country or another profession entirely. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so Laiba would like to know what are the most important things to know about the BA-LL.B program at LUMS?
It's an interesting
Very
question.
broad question.
Yeah.
So from your point of view, Heba first.
Okay, so for me, the most important things, interdisciplinary approach, especially because of the initial 2 BA years. Comparative legal research, what that actually means to be immersed in comparative law. It's something that, you know, our legal system and our courts rely on all the time, so a good training in that really helps. A big focus on law as it's developing in Pakistan. So through these research and talks and seminar series that I just mentioned, we're able to not only, you know, do current developments find mention in our courses right now. I mean, I just had students ask me for the recent Musharraf treason decision because they wanted to read up on it themselves. But a lot of our extra co-curricular activities are focused on these developments that are happening as we speak and as law develops in Pakistan. And obviously the student life on campus. I mean, I can't stress that enough. It's not, obviously, I understand that when you're seeking admission into a university, that's not maybe top of your priority or maybe top of your parents' priorities. But looking back, that's one of the salient features of life at LUMS.
So I think for me as well, the student life essentially is something that I will start off with, because I think we also have a very good support group on campus. So in terms of if you're struggling with your studies, if you're struggling with something else, you will always be able to find somebody who will be there for you. Whether it be from the students, whether it's from staff, faculty, across the board. Other than that, some extracurricular activities, of course, but from within the law school, I think the one thing that really goes to the core of my heart is the comparative study that we do, pretty much in every course that we study. Even when I went for my master's degree to the United States, I thought, I mean, it wasn't difficult.
Yeah.
It was rather easy, and many of the things we were studying, we had already studied those at LUMS.
Bilkul.
So they came very naturally to me, and I essentially had a lot of time to relax during the master's degree, whereas other students from other jurisdictions were actually struggling with the course material because they weren't really too familiar with the American jurisprudence, whereas we essentially have been sort of grilled in it as well. So I think that for me essentially is the key point.
Right, okay. So Muneeb would like to know, will I get an opportunity to get connected with top lawyers in the country?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So just like I mentioned, career fair, that happens every year. So that's one of those opportunities. We also invite various practitioners, even judges, to come to LUMS to give a talk to our law students. We've had Justice Saqib Nisar, when he was on the Supreme Court, come for a talk as well. Recently we had a talk given by the public prosecutor and the judge of the GBV court, the gender-based violence court. So it's essentially an ongoing sort of a thing where you will, and we also have retired judges like Justice Jawad Khwaja, and recently retired from LUMS Justice Fazil Kareem, who essentially taught at LUMS as well. So the idea is that the 5-year degree is very integrated in that sense as well, that you will inadvertently and unavoidably have to deal with a lot of practitioners and a lot of people from the legal fraternity.
Yeah. And I think as you know, part of the faculty here, one of the balances that we're always trying to strike is a balance between permanent faculty and adjunct faculty. And adjunct faculty are the people who are currently practicing or currently working, or etc., etc. So that's a very good opportunity to network in the sort of, you know, conventional sense of the word, and also just gain an insight of what life is like as a practicing lawyer.
Yeah. Okay. So Lareeb would like to know, is LUMS affiliated with law firms for internships?
So we do have an understanding with several law firms. For short periods of times, we've also had MOUs in the past with different entities for law internship placements. So we do have that, yeah.
Right, okay. Fahad would like to know, what higher study programs do I become eligible for after an LL.B degree?
So LLM would be the first thing, then followed by a PhD or an STD, depending on which country essentially you're planning on going to. But in addition to that, so like we mentioned earlier, there's also alumni who went to pursue masters and even PhDs in anthropology, sociology, development studies,
public policy
programs, even education sector. So there's a very diverse sort of alumni body there as well. Yeah. So you will have a support group should you come in. Yes.
Okay. Adil would like to know, on a general level, how many classes per week should I expect for the program?
So I think you'll have a minimum of 4 courses per semester.
That means twice a week. So
if they're all 4 credits, then you essentially, for every course you'll be meeting twice a week. So that's essentially Just do the math. But sometimes there will be a few semesters where that might go higher, so 5 or 6, but then they might have like fewer credit hours. So they roughly essentially have a similar sort of workload in terms of class timings.
Yeah. We're meeting for classes 4 days a week. That's when most of your classes are concentrated. On Fridays, you will sometimes have actually often have a class, but Friday will be a slightly easier work day. There's no classes on Saturdays, which I know is a norm in other law colleges, but we don't have classes on Saturdays.
Also, if you choose your courses right, you just might get Friday off. So.
Okay. So Akbar Khan Achakzai would like to know, BA students, will they be allowed to take English literature courses?
Of course.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
In fact, my first semester at LUMS, I took a very rewarding English literature course. That's actually one of my favorite courses of my education at LUMS. Yeah.
Okay. Suleiman would like to know, what is the maximum age limit for BA-LL.B? So there is no age limit to apply to the BA-LL.B program at LUMS. Okay. The next question is from Harun. What kind of minors I can take from other schools at LUMS if I'm doing a law degree? So people do want to know a lot about the minor courses that they'll have an opportunity to join in case they study law at LUMS.
So इनका नाम क्या था?
Harun.
So Harun, there's actually so many minors at LUMS that I'd have a tough time recalling them, but let me just take a stab. There's economics, political science, mathematics, literature, psychology, sociology, anthropology,
management science.
Management sciences. Is that it? History?
History.
So there are minors available from
pretty much every stream.
Yeah, from all of the schools.
For most streams, essentially, you can do a minor, except for some of the engineering streams, essentially.
I think yes.
From every other stream, essentially, and even in education now, you can essentially have a minor.
Yeah.
Okay. So Marwa would like to know, from where can I find about the faculty of the BA-LL.B honors program? So we have them right here. Please
There's
tell
two
a
of
bit
us.
more. Yeah.
So I think Marwa, you should answer Marwa's question.
Yes. Am I asking it? Okay, so essentially you can, if you go to the LUMS website, there's a law school website or tab for it there on the LUMS website as well, and you'll have a page where you have short bios of all the permanent faculty members. We don't really have that available for the adjunct faculty because they keep on changing from semester to semester depending on different vacancies that we might have, or the different sort of course offerings that essentially are open during that particular time. But I mean, some of the faculty members essentially are the same from when we were students here, and we have some very excellent faculty members, and you sort of realize how good they are again once you go for your masters abroad, and you know that you've covered everything. But yeah.
You did mention a few names before.
So we have, like our HOD essentially is Dr. Sadaf Aziz. The director for the Chinese Legal Center is also a professor here, is Sikandar Shah. We also have Dr. Zubair Abbasi, who specializes in family law. We have Dr. Azim, who is
constitutional
law and
labor
primarily, also critical legal thinking, which is his favorite. We have Uzair, we have Ahmad, who's currently on leave, but we have Dr. Faiza as well, who does Islamic finance. So
there Miss Angabeen.
Miss Angabeen, of course, who's doing street law, legal aid clinics with me. So we also essentially, so in terms of practitioners, we have a very wide variety. Oh yes, we have Adnan Sitar, who is just joined recently.
Yeah.
Sorry, Adnan.
He specializes in criminology. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the next question is from Fatima. How can study of law be beneficial for commerce students?
So there's a lot of nexus between law and commerce, especially with commercial and corporate law. A lot of our graduates end up working for corporate law chambers and as in-house counsels for a lot of companies. There's obviously a core course around commercial law, and then lots of electives that you can build around it. So for example, taxation comes to mind, commercial arbitration comes to mind, that also have to do with commercial law. In addition to that, if you want to really sort of specialize in that degree, you can always make a minor out of management studies, which is a major offered out of the business school. So that gives you the ability to straddle both the law school as well as the business school.
Okay. So just 2 questions that we're going to take before we end the session. How frequently does ATC conduct its test? So again, the law admission test, you'll have to find that out by visiting the ATC website, which is atc.gov.pk. So they announce the dates, you'll have all the pattern and marks needed, everything. All the information is present on that website. So please do visit the website for more information on the law admission test. And there's another question from Saleha. How much SAT score is needed to get into the law school safely? So Saleha, we do not have a minimum benchmark for the SAT score to get into LUMS. But what we can tell you is that last year the average score at LUMS was 1320. So that should give you an idea of what you'd be looking at. All right, thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you to our audience who've joined us for these 4 days for our Knowledge Week. If you still think you need more information on our programs and our admission criteria, you can still stay connected with us through our social media platforms. Please do join us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. You can also get the admission information from our admission website, which is admission.lums.edu.pk. You can write directly to our admissions office at admissions@lums.edu.pk. You can call the admissions office directly. The number is 042-3560-2177. And again, thank you very much. Good luck with your applications. We look forward to welcome you at LUMS. Thank you.
Thank you.